Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Rogue Wave podcast, the frequency for all things pop culture and the disruptors behind it. We talk comics, movies, TV, and pop culture every Wednesday night, 8 p.m. Eastern, right here on roguematter.com Roguematter.com, Facebook.com/WeAreRogueMatter, YouTube.com/Rogue_Matter, Twitch.tv/WeAreRogueMatter, and Twitter.com/Rogue_Matter. I'm your host, Michael Dolce, as always, joined by my cohort in crime, but this time live in Sire Studios, Mr. Hassan Godwin. How you doing, sir?
It's a joy of my life to be here.
I can tell from the enthusiasm in your voice. I think that's great. I think clearly this was worth everything. And,
This is
the
me
weather
excited.
accommodated you.
Yes, this is me excited.
I actually was laughing because this is the I saw the weather forecast, and the weatherman even said last day of 80s, like last day of summer, because tomorrow is the first day of fall.
Yes.
And here you are, and I couldn't ask for a better weather, but I know you can because you're not as much a fan of the heat, right?
I'm not a fan of 80-degree weather. No.
Yeah. So I like that you're just like frozen. You're like solid too. I like it. You like. And the mic is blocking your mouth?
Well, there's like nothing here. Like there's nothing for me to do. There's nothing for me to look at. There's nothing for me to rest on. So,
I like
you know.
I just like that you're here. In person is nice, right? We miss in person.
Absolutely. I've missed it for months and months and months and months.
We actually managed to do this without any recording snafus. So this is who knows what's going to happen? Anything can happen.
Well, now.
I'm not. All right.
Now that you jinxed us.
We've got a great show tonight. We are talking Until I Die, which is the Rogue Matter, which is a comic book on Rogue Matter. Until I Die #4 is out there right now. It is What If Frank Sinatra, we don't call him that, but what if Frank Sinatra and the Brat Pack, we don't call him that either, were, in reality, CIA assassins. And we pick it up from there, and I think it's the book that I love to hate. Actually, I love it. I just love it, but I hate it because
You love to hate.
I hate it because it's so friggin' good. It's
Oh.
you know, like when you got like the superstar on your basketball team, and you're kind of envious that he can dunk and you can't, and you're just like shooting 3-pointers and you're doing your best you can. Well, that's the way I feel about this book. This book to me is
You're supposed to admire your own skills, man. You're not supposed to be envious of someone else's skills.
I know you're not supposed to be, but
Yeah, you're supposed to. You got to work on that, man.
I'll do my best.
You got to do your best to work on that.
Yeah, I'll do my best on that. No, it's great. It's about basically Frank Sinatra. We're not allowed to say that, but it's Dan Robbo, and he is going. Basically, he's telling his life story. That's how the book starts out. He's telling his life story. He's kind of doing a deathbed confessional almost kind of style because in a way that's. Why would he do it now?
Yeah, he's summarizing. He's looking back on his life.
Yeah, exactly. And so he's talking to a journalist, and the journalist obviously doesn't believe him, and talking about all these different things that happened to him and how he was involved in the Kennedy assassination, his affair with Marilyn Monroe, which led to the Kennedy assassination, and just in general, just him and Sammy Davis Jr. and the rest of the Brat Pack are just the Brat Pack or Rat Pack? The Rat Pack, not the Rat Pack. The Brat Pack is
the Brat Pack is completely different.
Yeah, that's totally different than from this, right?
Yeah, okay, don't confuse the two.
Yeah.
You'll be annihilated by pop culture police.
And so he's just basically talking about all this stuff to this journalist, and the pacing of the book is tremendous. There's just so much about it that I love. Jason Stair just did a phenomenal job of not just telling a good story, but making it fun. Like it's a brisk read, it's a fun read.
How many issues is it?
It's 4 issues total. And number 4 is on roguematter.com right now.
And that's the last issue.
That is the last issue. So that's the cool part. We are definitely going to we're definitely going to see more Until I Die. I can tell you that.
I was going to do sequels to this particular story.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And,
that's good to know.
So you're definitely going to see more of it.
Okay.
However, for the point of argument right now, it's simply what we got up there. So up on screen right now too. This is the beginning of issue 4. Dan, or Frank, aka Dan. I hope like Frank Sinatra's estate doesn't listen to this podcast because we'd be screwed.
Yeah, we're in serious danger of that happening.
Yeah.
We got to watch what we say.
Yeah. One of the things that Jason Steer does really well too is his use of the double page spread. It's definitely like helps. I think it's a little tricky. Obviously, double page spreads are kind of a tricky thing right now because especially we're a digital company, so it's not like we're actually putting these in print. So it can get a little tricky when you're reading it on your laptop, your desktop, or your tablet.
Yeah.
So we actually created a separate digital spread format as well
for a double page spread.
Yeah. So
okay,
so,
that's pretty cool.
We were looking out for everybody. But I like it because it's very Bendis-y. I think Bendis is the one that kind of. He didn't create double page spreads, but I feel like his talking head double page spread, that's like a Bendis signature thing. I actually like. I know a lot of people actually complain.
So there's a lot of talking heads in the story. A lot of word balloons. Very word balloon heavy. You're saying
not word balloon heavy. I mean, it's the right amount. Everything's the right amount. But what I did like about it was there were those, talking head style double page spreads that help move things along. There's one in particular, Aaron. If you could bring up the one where he is, I think he's talking. I think it's number 6. The number 6. UID 6 is the graphic. Yeah, this is the one where I think things really start picking up. This is issue 2.
Oh.
And he's having a conversation with Fitz.
It looks amazing.
President Fitz. They call him President Fitz because, again, the names and likenesses look nothing like the person. And this is where you get to learn that who the bad guy of this 4-issue series is going to be. It is the beloved President Fitz. And President Fitz, I mean, he says there, he says, "What do you like? Are you more of a redhead or a blonde?" He snatches, in this scene, he actually snatches Dan out of bed. He was with 2 women. And then he asks both of them, or he doesn't ask both, he asks Dan, he says, are you a redhead or a blonde? And he goes, redhead, best of both worlds. And he then throws the redhead off the cliff, like right in front of him. And it's, and this is not just some random, woman that he knows. This is a long-standing, girlfriend, relationship that he's in. And it's brutal. It's like scenes like this where I'm like, maybe I could write stuff like this. Maybe. But the intensity level of it, like the feeling of, like, it's like that Game of Thrones feeling, when a character dies. Or like that, when you're like, no, I like that character. Like swift, but not. Yeah. Not excessive.
So you have a lot of character investment.
Yeah.
Is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So
that's pretty cool.
This was, I got to tell you, I was like I said, I love to hate this book because I'm just eternally jealous. Yosim Cardenas is the artist.
I've seen that work. That work is amazing.
It is, and his style reminds me of. You ever read Chew, Image Comics?
No.
Rob. I'm never going to get this guy's name right, but Giron. I'm not even going to try. Very similar to the guy who does Chew.
Okay. I'll look it up.
It's got like an animated quality to it, but it's not cartoonish.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of, like the coloring. He does all the coloring.
It's cartoony without being cartoonish.
Right. Right. Like that's a big deal. Like that's definitely like a big deal too. I think that's like, again, something that I envy because I feel like a lot of times if you don't get the right artist to match the tone, and you would think a book that's about a CIA assassin, you'd want more of like a serious kind of artist, maybe even a darker artist, But it just fits. Like, it just fits. Everything about it just fits. So The Adventures of Dan Robbo. Until I Die, created by Jason Stair. It's on roguematter.com right now.
You're
do
a
you have
fan.
anything to add to my roundup of Until I Die?
I think everybody should read it because I think it's fantastic.
Well, with a ringing endorsement like that, I mean, you can't go wrong with that, right?
Right.
To be fair, that is as enthusiastic as you usually get.
Yes.
Each issue ends with a particular Frank Sinatra song playing in the background as well too, or being or the lyrics.
No, that's a good idea.
Sung. Yeah, it's just I don't know. I really can't stop talking enough about it. So go check it out. It's on the front page. You can go to the comics section as well too. It's there, and it's great. And that is Rogue Matter presents Until I Die #4, which is out now. Again, read the whole series. It's free. I don't know how we're making money. I don't know how my checks keep clearing every week, but they do. So that's all that really kind of matters to me. And I don't know. That's all I can do. All right. When we come back, there was a small little Star Wars show that dropped. It's called Andor. I don't know if you heard of it.
I have actually heard of it through the fog of a reality that I live in. So yes.
When we come back, we give you our rogue reaction to the first 3 episodes of Andor.
Appreciate a heads up.
Welcome back to the Rogue Wave podcast, broadcasting live from Sire Studios. Very exciting. Hassan Godwin in studio with me. Usually we are remote, which, in 2019, we would always kind of disguise the fact that we were remote because it's kind of like a weird thing. Not a weird thing, but like not a common thing, right? Like usually, be like, wow, you should be in the same like studio together. But now, thanks to like, COVID and everything like that and the Zoom life that we lived, people are used to being in separate rooms.
I know maybe 3 podcasts in total that where people actually do it all in the same room. So,
right. But in the last 2 years, you're talking about?
No, in general.
In general?
Yeah.
Really?
In general.
What are those podcasts?
I don't know, like Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan's usually in the same room.
Yes.
I don't know. Rosenbaum does that one, Inside of You,
What
where he's actually in. There's tons of them. Hundreds of them.
Well, yeah, now, but like prior to COVID?
Yes, Michael.
I don't think that's the case. I don't think there was.
Why ask me then?
I don't know. I don't know. All right. There was a Star Wars show that came out. It was called Andor. First 3 episodes dropped today. So if you haven't seen it, yes, thank you for the warning, spoilers alert. Thank you, Erin. She's very on top of things with that, which is
I'll take your word for it.
What was your initial reaction? And then I'm going to ask you a deep philosophical question.
My initial reaction is that it was, the writing was very smart. It was it wasn't going for fan service. Mm-hmm. It was deliberately trying to tell a cohesive story and set everything up for what's to come. But also, I acknowledge it's only the first 3 episodes,
sure.
So I have no idea where anything is going.
Yeah.
But so far, so good as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I mean, let's take the last installment of Star Wars, which was either Book of Boba Fett or Obi-Wan.
Obi-Wan, yeah.
I'm saying you could do either one. I know Obi-Wan was technically the last one that just came out, but I'm just going back and saying the last,
okay,
last few, right? All of them have a distinct tone, right? All of them have a distinct
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair to say.
I think Obi-Wan, and it's not a negative or a knock, was a little cartoonish in a lot of ways.
I mean, you gotta define cartoonish because that's like the second time you've used it.
Yeah. So some of the things like when he escapes with the girl in the big coat, it's like okay, that's kind of like something you would.
Yeah,
see,
it's a little farcical.
Right.
Yeah.
Things little things like that that
Okay, that's
that
fair.
stuck out to me as being maybe in the not necessarily.
It's a
definitely
little
not,
absurd.
right.
Okay.
Book of Boba Fett had that distinctive Western Mandalorian style. They kept it was the same people that did Mandalorian. They just moved it along. So not moved it along, but they did what they were doing for Mandalorian. They brought it to Book of Boba Fett.
Yeah, yeah. For like my impression of a lot of the Disney series is that they all start off as really great ideas that get greenlit right away, and then they start production on them. So like there's no time for them to really like develop a specific arc or angle or theme for these.
Sure.
So like Book of Boba Fett is theoretically about a guy who is a bad guy who is trying to go straight. But since we don't have a lot of information about him, because basically his whole thing was that he was a nameless stranger. He was
Right.
very aloof. But so like what the show is supposed to do is not only establish him in the past, but also establish his breaking point as to why he wants to turn over a new leaf.
Mm-hmm.
And it's arguable. The success rate of that is arguable. I enjoyed it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I can understand why people didn't. But a lot of these things are just kind of like they could have used another pass over them, in the
Sure.
development stage before they actually rush to production. Now, it's a weird complaint coming from me because I usually complain about how long it takes them to put content out in the first place. But it doesn't matter. Like, if you're going to put poor content out, it doesn't matter how long it takes.
Yeah.
Whenever you get something, it's still going to be disappointing. Now, that's not totally the case, but it's borderline the case with a lot of Star Wars series, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I can agree with you on that. I think there's also there's a need to feed the beast. You bought Lucasfilm for $4 billion. Now, mind you, that investment is already paying off, massive dividends. So it's not like you're hurting for, for
well, I
return on your investment.
every movie they've made $1 billion, and they've made
right,
except for one. Excuse me.
right,
And they've made what is it, 5?
yeah.
So that's basically the $4 billion right there. In theory, the studios don't get all that money directly.
No, of course not. I mean, there's budgets.
But you got endorsements and you got other things. You got all these other side deals that they can make on behalf of a very successful franchise, which probably recoup their money exponentially.
Right.
And then there's stock and all that other stuff. And they actually didn't give Lucas $4 billion. They gave him like something like $2 billion in cash, and then like another $2 billion in stock options. So he didn't get the full $4 billion, just to swim around like Scrooge McDuck. So, I'm sure theoretically Disney has probably recouped that quote unquote loss by now.
But they still want to make more, right? They're
of
a
course,
company that they're out to make money.
That's the whole point.
And anything with a Star Wars label on it tends to do well, right? Or tends to attract an audience. Let's say that. Right?
It elicits a reaction.
Puts butts in seats. This is the philosophical question I have for you, and this is how it relates to my reaction to Andor. What makes a Star Wars movie / story? What makes a Star Wars story? Well, it's a story, right? Like, what makes it Star Wars? Because I'm watching Andor. I'm enjoying the hell out of it. I think it's Diego Luna is fantastic. It's very nuanced, it's very subtle, but it's not boring. I think it picks up really well. I think it goes really well. But this could be District 9, for all I know. This could be any high quality sci-fi. This could be Babylon 5, and I wouldn't know the difference necessarily. I didn't really watch Babylon 5, so that's why. Your reaction to me saying that was like, what do you mean it's Babylon? No, I didn't look anything like Babylon 5.
I plead the fifth. I didn't say a thing.
But you said enough. By not saying a word, you said enough. But what makes this Star Wars? Because there's some fantastical creatures, but I think all sci-fi, stories have that. Movies, TV shows, whatever you want to say. Like they have their creatures. They did have a droid, and
cute droid. I like.
It was
the
a
droid.
cute droid. Yes, you have to have a cute droid. That's like mandatory now too. You have to have at least one cute creature.
I think it's B2 Emo. I think that's his. That's
actually
B2
even a cute name,
EMO.
right? That's
Yeah.
even a cute name, like
Yeah.
right?
I like that he spoke English.
Yes.
It's the first droid that actually speaks, like the first mechanical droid that just straight out talk to them.
I also like the fact that a lot of the characters had accents too.
Oh, that's usually.
No, but no. That's not necessarily the case anymore. Like in
All the
Mandalorian.
Empire is usually British, you
Right.
know,
But
and
I like that. I like that. There was
but they've always been British since
no, but you
they
don't-
filmed it. They filmed the movie in England.
No. I get that. they. But that's what I'm saying. It was a throwback to the original. I think since then, I feel like they haven't. I don't. It was noticeable to me that they all kind of had accents. It
Okay.
seemed like to me.
All right.
That just seemed like a noticeable thing, and it brought me back to the original trilogy. So I kind of dug that. But other than that, I don't know. Like, how would you, if you just showed this to somebody, and said, "What is this? What franchise is this part of?" I don't think they'd necessarily. It's not a lock that they'd get it right.
Well, no. Look, everything is Star Wars is basically desolate, right? There's
Yeah.
people on the fringes of whatever society that are just trying to eke their way, and there's this looming danger,
Mm-hmm.
which is usually the Empire,
Right.
that is basically oppressing everyone, and it's a struggle as to whether they fight back or they join the Empire.
Yeah.
So you got that. Then there's also the aesthetics of the spaceships in and of themselves.
Okay.
There are certain there's certain visual cues that Star Wars has, ships coming into the camera and going out into infinity. There's a lot of stuff, but it is very, I understand what you're saying, it's very subtle. But it's usually like there's usually a character struggling with some kind of level of self-discovery.
Yeah.
And that is that struggle that character has is the foreground, and the backdrop is this wider galactic
Right.
conflict, usually a civil war, because
Mhm.
usually most of the stuff is either just before or just after the original trilogy,
Yeah.
right? Because nobody wants to tackle the prequels. So you've got kind of a dystopian atmosphere. Everything's run down, everything's used, even though it's stuff that we've never ever seen before.
Yeah.
You've got people on their last legs, You've got burned out heroes. A lot of what you'll get are burned out heroes who just don't want to be part of the system anymore, and they usually have either a son or a nephew,
Right.
or an adopted, Andor, and it wants to get into the fray, and either the proprietor is either reluctant to let the kid go, like Uncle Owen,
Yeah.
or is pushing a kid out the door, like say Obi-Wan to Anakin. And that's kind of what those are pieces, those are disparate
Yeah.
pieces of what Star Wars is.
I got to tell you, very impressed with the level of detail you just gave. I actually wasn't expecting that. I don't have much to react to on that because I don't disagree with anything you said. Those are elements of Star Wars. But at the same time, I sit there and I don't know the answer to this either. Like, what makes this any different? Like, what makes Andor any different than any other side? With the exception of it has that Star Wars banner on it.
Star Wars is this really strange thing that is, it's greater than the sum of its parts,
Mhm.
right? And because it's a thing that is well known to be greater than the sum of its part, no one part can actually be considered Star Wars. One of every part.
Yeah.
Unless it's Tatooine. If it's Tatooine, everybody knows it's Star Wars. But
That's true, actually.
but
That's actually very true.
there are all these different parts of Star Wars that, taken separately,
Mm-hmm.
could skew into other things.
Yeah.
Because Star Wars is an amalgamation of stolen genres,
Mm-hmm.
all over the place, most significantly Westerns. So, and Westerns are basically about these wide open spaces where there's very little civilization, and there are, there is a new world rising out of the old world.
Okay.
And there's a pending doom because there's some kind of overbearing organization that is trying to run the town. And that's roughly put all that with a science fiction backdrop and spaceships and laser guns, and you probably are coming pretty close to telling a Star Wars story.
Okay. This is the other thing that I thought was interesting. I think, where do you rank Rogue One in your list of post-Disney movies? Is it fair to say near the top?
Of the Disney movies?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's totally number
It's
one.
either one or two?
Yeah, no, it's number one.
Right.
From my opinion, of
and
all the
again,
Disney
this
movies.
is not a loaded question. This is a genuine. I'm genuinely curious. Did you love it? If they didn't have the kick-ass scene at the end with Darth Vader, would you have loved it as much as you did?
Yes.
Because I actually don't know the answer to that either. Someone posed that question after, and I'm like, oh yeah, like
all of that was a bonus though at the end of it. Because I didn't expect. By the time they got there, I was already all in.
Yeah.
Right. I just like the setup. But I mean, like, there are pieces all over, Rogue One. There's nostalgia bait. The whole thing is nostalgia bait.
Okay.
It's just oohs and ahs. You got Yavin. You got all kinds of stuff that's going on. You got the Death Star. You've got Tarkin, who's still alive, and so it's by the time you get to the last sequence, and the scene that everybody's talking about, you're in nostalgia overload by then anyway, and that just pushes you right over the edge.
Okay. All right, I can see that. For me, I do genuinely wonder. Like, I was genuinely curious after someone had mentioned, like, would you like it as much if you didn't see Darth Vader at the end? Now, Rogue One, because it had the Empire and it had the machinery. I think the machinery and the droids. That to me is what really makes Star Wars to me. Even though I know there's the mythical, the mystical, there's magic, there's all
there's a lot of disparate parts,
other elements to it. But to me, it never didn't feel like Star Wars because the ships were the same, the Empire was the same. Like it had enough touch points, like you said, to the previous films that came out. So that was it definitely felt like it. Now, but I'm not gonna lie, that final scene with Darth Vader at the end is one of the reasons I'm like, wow, this is the most amazing, most amazing films I've ever seen, and the hidden, the cameo of Carrie Fisher, at the end too, where they did it really, really well too.
That's the other thing. The movie is an absolute love note to Star Wars.
Yeah,
and there's so many things in it that are so subtle that only like hardcore Star Wars fans would get all of it.
Yeah,
but there's something in it for the casual fan, and there's something in it for the hardcore fan.
Yeah.
It's really, like, you can't make an entire franchise like that. That is like a one-shot deal. But
right.
if you're gonna
well, that's what they're testing now, right?
Well, no, I mean, even Andor is not going to be like that. Even
right.
the first 3 episodes of Andor have not been nostalgia bait,
Right.
So it's obviously going to attempt to tell its own story, thankfully, and we'll see whatever their success rate is with that. But I mean, if you're going to try to hit everybody over the head with member berries, Rogue One is the way to do it, because at least it gives you like a really solid, really fun and swashbuckling story while it's hitting you with the, hey, remember this? Did you remember that? Did you? And then some stuff we'd never seen before, like a giant Hawaiian imperial planet, and I mean, that's stuff that's like, all right, the Empire lives well, on some outposts.
Yeah.
And yeah, the fact that it breaks right into A New Hope, just breathes new life into the original trilogy again. It's a great accomplishment as far as I'm concerned.
Switching back to Andor too, and just talking about how we talked about the differences, right? The different feels between the different Star Wars series. I was, and again, I'm a parent. I have kids, and they're young kids, so there's always like that radar that just involuntarily goes off in your head. Like, I don't think I would show them this. I would wait till they're maybe like teenagers at this point. Maybe 10 would be the minimum age I'd probably show them, because 10-year-olds are much more savvy, I think, these days.
Yeah.
But like, and I'm not objecting to it. I'm not saying, oh, it's bad they're doing it. No, it was just one thing I noticed. I'm like, wow, okay, they're in a brothel. They're, and it's right.
Well, you don't really see anything. It's a holographic stripper.
Sure. No, but
So
just the fact that you just used the word holographic stripper that's enough for like, okay, my 6.5-year-old, we're gonna skip Andor for a little while.
I get what you're saying. I saw A New Hope when I was 4, and some guy got his arm cut off with a lightsaber, where his arm was on the ground and bleeding.
Yeah.
You know, so I mean,
Go either way, right?
yeah. I mean, and like Uncle Owen and Aunt Beru were turned into charred skeletons.
It was so quick. I never caught that when I was a kid. Like I couldn't. Like I saw Star Wars when I was maybe 5 or 6. Also, maybe 6. And it wasn't until years later I'm like, oh crap, that was their bodies. Like I didn't like it. It was one of those things that didn't. I could just.
Yeah.
It didn't register with me.
But I mean, there is. It's not.
We were tougher back then too. I think.
Well, yeah.
That goes.
But that's not a kid gloves movie.
No,
there's some serious material in that. In fact, the anachronism in it, or the farcical aspect of it, is how quick Luke gets over the fact that his aunt and uncle have been charred to turn into charcoal briquettes.
That's another thing too, where I think it's an overload of content that we have now. We have so much. We have video games that are basically movies too.
Yes.
Right?
Yes, we do.
Forget. Like you literally had 3 channels. You had a movie come out maybe once a week, maybe once a month if you were lucky. So these were things that didn't register with you until you got to like actually watch it at home on a VCR, where you could watch it over and over.
And we didn't even have VCRs back then, so.
But I'm thinking even like Empire Strikes Back, right? Like you can. Sorry, I should have actually told you what I was thinking in my head before I actually said it. Where you could watch Empire Strikes Back, and then you kind of realize you're like, wait a minute, how much time is actually elapsing here? He's a Jedi Master in like 2 hours. Like you don't even realize it. Like, but it gives you this impression that he's been there for like days and weeks and stuff like that. But then you're like, oh wait a minute, but they're on Cloud City. So
the crazy thing about Star Wars is that you're really not supposed to take it too seriously.
right. Yeah,
the material in and of itself.
Yeah,
the material in and of itself is kind of constantly begging you not to take this too seriously. But at the same time, the material kind of takes itself very seriously.
Yeah.
So we're kind of stuck in a rock and a hard place. Whereas you can take the mythology to heart, and there's people out there who want to call themselves Jedi and want to follow the code and whatever. You could do that. Mm-hmm. You can apply a calendar to it, which they've done. Which Andor is actually. I think Andor is probably the first mainstream piece of material that actually has the BBY calendar.
Yeah.
So it actually makes that canon now, because most of that it appears in the in Legends and the expanding universe, which BBY means before Battle of Yavin. So, like, the Battle of Yavin is...
a lot.
Yeah, I know. I got it. That's why I explained it.
Mm-hmm.
The Battle of Yavin is in the first movie is the focal point.
Yeah.
So it's everything is either... It's like Christ, right? It's before Christ and after Christ. Yeah. Well, but we have an audience that may not understand.
That's true.
So I'm trying to explain it to them. So anyway... So Cassian Andor, or Andor, the TV show, is probably the first time I've ever seen BBY actually used in canon.
Okay.
So that's interesting. And so, like, when you do things like that, when you apply a timeline, you're kind of hinting that we should be taking this kind of seriously. Right. But then again, when you become a Jedi Master in the space of 3 years, or like, also supposedly between Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi is supposed to be 3 years, right? Everybody says it takes as long as it took to make that movie.
Right.
However, at the end of Empire Strikes Back, you find that Lando and Chewie are going straight to Tatooine, so they know exactly where Han is.
Correct.
And they're going straight for him. And for some reason, Lando's wearing Han's clothes, but nobody ever really addresses that.
Family Guy said that one time, and it's a little crazy. It's a little weird.
Yeah. We're being raided. So
I can hear that. I think that only us in the studio can hear that there's an alarm.
I hope so. I hope we're not on fire. I really do.
Yeah.
Anyway, so it's kind of a mixed bag as to whether or not it's something that you should take very seriously. And of course, you always err on the side of caution. don't take anything too seriously. Try not to.
Last question I have for you on Andor. Andor, well, I'm going to actually dispute my own question before I ask it, but Andor is Disney Star Wars' attempt to build something that's not Skywalker based. I would have said Mandalorian, however.
Yeah, there's a lot of Luke
and then
Skywalker.
Boba Fett, you can't help but be tied to the Skywalker trilogy.
Well, Andor's not really going to succeed.
No,
because Andor's dead. Spoiler alert. We're not going to get to... Now, there might be spin-offs so that you have other characters, so that you'll have the show called Andor after Rogue One. Yeah. So is everybody sad that Andor's dead, but we're still going to go on with this show?
Yeah.
But I see what you're saying, yes. It will. It tried to also do that with Solo, a Star Wars story. It's trying to do something that's not quite about Jedi and not about the mythology and the light side versus the dark side.
Really, and even at this time period too, because he hasn't, taken the mission to steal the planet.
Not yet. Yeah.
So this one really has no ties to Star Wars.
To the Skywalker family.
Side.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see how successful they are in bringing people along that A, doesn't have Jedi right now that we know of. B, doesn't really visually, to me anyway, I know there's parts of it, doesn't visually to me look like a Star Wars product. And C, has a character that we know.
Why would you say it doesn't look like Star Wars, though?
It doesn't not look like Star Wars, but there's nothing, with the exception of just the droid. When the droid's on screen, I'm like, oh, that's Star Wars. Otherwise, I kind of, because even the quote unquote bad guys they're like tributaries of the Empire. They're not even
right. Yeah, but I mean, there's a lot of Star Wars isms in it, right? There's a bar. There's always going to be a bar.
There's a bar in every sci-fi. I mean, you're going to find a bar in every sci-fi.
Yeah, but I mean, who was the catalyst of that? Right.
Well,
where did that trope come from? How many other sci-fi bars were there before Star Wars?
But again, going back,
there was
three TV channels, and
we're talking about movies. We're talking about movies. There were hundreds of movies before Star Wars. There was thousands of movies before Star Wars. I mean, that didn't start at all. Just because we only had 3 channels, which is not true, by the way. There were way more than 3 channels.
There was 12.
But there was 3 major channels. Right. 3 giant network channels. But
right.
That's not. I'm just saying, and that they invented that trope. That trope came from them. There are interstellar spacecraft. There are, there's lasers,
Yeah.
There's murder.
Yeah.
There's the characters murdering each other.
Everything you're saying to me, this could be District 9 to me. And again, I'm not knocking, because actually, like I said, I'm enjoying it. I like the characters. I'm enthralled in what's happening. I like the dread that I'm getting, the sense of dread that I'm getting. I even like the quote unquote bad guy. I don't even think he's a bad guy, to be honest with you. I think he's a guy who really is he believes in the
He's a bureaucratic
order.
Stooge.
No, but he's not though, because the bureaucratic stooge was his boss, who was basically like, these guys, it was an accident, be a hero. They were being heroic. Let's wipe this under the rug. This guy's like, no, we need to do something about it.
Yeah, but I mean, when each opportunity he had to kind of step up into that role, he kind of just
I know.
He flubbed it.
His less than enthusiastic coach speech.
Yeah,
I know.
And it's like, just play your role, man. You don't need
motives. His motives to me are they're the antagonists
theoretically, but it's also it's also like, if someone tells you leave well enough alone,
right?
Maybe you should leave, because I mean, look what happened.
Again,
now he's got tons of people who are dead. He had 2 people who had died before. Now he's got a bunch of people who are dead. A failed mission, a destroyed ship.
Yes.
And so and he was theoretically unauthorized to do all
Correct,
of it.
Yes.
So he,
yeah.
The whirlwind's coming for that guy.
How quick is that first mate guy who was like all about him doing it? He's gonna like drop him like a toilet seat.
Yeah, because
he's gonna be like, oh, I told him not to go.
That's because that's always what happens,
Well, that's what I'm saying. Again, he is the antagonist so far, but I
So
wouldn't
far.
call him a villain.
There'll be bigger. There are going to be bigger
Oh, yeah.
French fries
Yeah,
that,
when
that
Darth
come
Vader
along.
shows up, it's gonna be
Yeah, hopefully Vader's not going to be anywhere near it.
All right, what did you
know?
guys think? What makes a Star Wars project too a product? I want to know that. Put your answers in the comments. We'll comment all week long, and put some questions in, because what we're gonna start doing too next week. We'll pluck some questions and we'll address them on air. What do you think about that idea? I just came up with it right now.
Sure.
This is what happens when you're in the studio with me, Hassan. We come up with all these great ideas.
Yeah, we came up with a couple of ideas before the show, and then we threw them out. So it happens all the
They don't all
time.
make the cutting room floor.
Yeah.
All right. When we come back, we'll put a bow on tonight's episode. Welcome back to the Rogue Wave podcast. I want to thank my in-studio guest, my co-host, Mr. Hassan Godwin, for trekking up here. We have the Rogue Wave holiday party that was postponed from December 2021. We're finally doing it. See? This is what it's all about, man.
Yes, it feels very Christmassy right now in 80-degree
well, the
weather.
irony is we have the 2022 holiday party now coming up in 3 months.
Yes. Yeah. Well, let's actually try to make that happen in season.
I would like that very much. A couple of announcements. Check me and Hassan out at the Dren Productions booth all weekend long at New York Comic Con. That is coming up October, I want to say 6th to the 9th.
Yes.
Hassan will be there October 6th. I'll be there all weekend long. You can check out all kinds of cool stuff. We're at the Dren Productions booth right on the show floor. So we are hot and heavy.
Woo-hoo.
Right out there. We got Kingdom of Tundo, number 6, coming out next week. So we'll dive into a little Tundo magic, and we'll go all around the Rogue. I don't think there's any big droppings happening next. You like that choice of word? You know when you catch yourself saying something, but it's like too late. You just gotta lean into it at that point.
Yeah.
There are no major movies or TV shows.
No big dropping. No dumps.
No.
Big dumps.
Oh, I love it. See this? We don't get this when we're on Zoom. That's the best part. All right. We will see you folks next week. Hi guys, Mike Dolce here from the Rogue Wave podcast. If you like this video, please feel free to like, share, subscribe, all that fun stuff. It really helps us out. Leave a comment, let us know what you'd like to see in future episodes, and tune in every Wednesday night, 8 p.m. Eastern, for a brand new episode of the Rogue Wave